No good success. He's a mate.
Well, I'm the Coffeeman. And now it is just gone 7:30, so it's time once again for another episode of The Adventures of the CoffeeBar Kid.
GrooveFM.co.nz and welcome to another adventure with the CoffeeBar Kid. And tonight, I want to specialise in one particular thing, the wonderful music from Rattle Records in Wellington. They have a wonderful catalogue of classical and jazz music, and they've been sending me some stuff for quite a while, and I thought I wanted to pay a little bit of a tribute to them. First of all, I'd better tell you a little bit about them. Established in 1991, Rattle continues to be the pre-eminent
107.7
Aotearoa. That's what it says on its website. Their aim is to provide an inspirational platform for extraordinary diversity and quality of music unique to this country, and to bring a rich soundscape to the wider world. Their carefully curated catalogue is generously dotted with award-winning albums, and all of their releases have garnered high praise from critics and music lovers all over the world. And that includes the CoffeeBar Kid here. We've had a number of really good stuff recently, and I want to play quite a bit of that for you coming up. One of the first things I want to play is from Hip Flask. Now, Hip Flask is Roger Mannon's, you know it from Groove FM. It's one of his little things. I'm going to read you the blurb that it says. Hip Flask is an Australasian ensemble, and they formed in the early 2000s by Kiwi saxophonist Roger Mannons, as I mentioned. And their first album was recorded in 2001, but not released until 2005, and that was on the wonderful Ode Records. Under a special label called the Manu Jazz label. If you want to check that one out, you can still find that, and libraries like the Wellington Public Library has that, so have a look for that one. The new recording 2, which is obviously the second one, was a title conceived tongue firmly in cheek, also known as Squared if you read it. I can see where they're going with that. Featured a lineup of Australian jazz heavyweights, of whom Roger has been performing with over the years. A little bit of a quote he put in here. I've always been aware that a lot of jazz music doesn't go down too well with the next door neighbour. With Hip Flask 1, I wrote some real simple tunes, but got some real complicated musicians to play them. The focus of the music is the groove and the blues, and I've endeavoured to do this again with the recording of the second one, a jazz album that the next door neighbour would enjoy. Actually, maybe the next door lover as well. That's what Roger Mannons says. Nigel Patterson, on the other hand, who's a reviewer, said Mannons has an incredible palette to draw from, drenched in classic Coltrane Coleman prose. He launches like a futuristic Sonny Rollins into the saxophone, effortlessly juxtaposing twisted abstract lines with dark soul blues. Let's have a bit of a listen, but before we do that, I'll just give you a lineup of the crew. Roger Mannon, obviously, Stu Hunter on organ, Adam Ponting on piano, Brendan Clark on bass, and Toby Hall on drums. Here's a track from their new album, which is called Hip Flask. Incidentally, if you want to find out about any of this music, go to rattlerecords.net and have a look there.
Groove FM is beautiful.
Track from Hip Flask number 2. That one is called Huffle Shuffle. Hope you enjoyed that. Got another track for you now from that album. It's called The Beauty in Their Eyes.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
This is the Adventures of the CoffeeBar Kid, and we're playing music from the Rattle Records collection. It's recent stuff that's come out from them over the last year or so. Their music genre is mainly classical music, actually, and occasionally jazz, which is what we're mostly featuring. But this time I am going to play something from the classical genre. This one is called Landscape Preludes. It's a series of 12 works from solo pianist Henry Wong Do. Now, his music and his performance is, it's very tactile, you have to say. If you listen to this particular track, which I want to play from you now, which is called On Streets Where I Live, you can literally hear, not only in the composition, but also in the lyrics, all about Wellington. It definitely tells you about what it's like to live on the hillier parts, the parts that we all know, that Haitaitai, that Kelvin, that kind of area, and you can hear that. There's a wee quote here from William Dart, who writes for the Herald. He says, "When the virtuoso is called for, Wong Do is your man. If you buy just one classical CD this year, make it Landscape Preludes." So let's play a track from it now.
I live in Durham Street. That's third on the left, up Aotearoa Street. As you drive up Aotearoa Street, it's a hairpin bend to the left, and then almost immediately a sharp turn to the right, up a drive to number 8. We've lived here for 25 years or more. It seemed expensive when I bought it, but it was the best buy of my life. A real home of our own. Of course, we've done a lot to it over the years and filled it with so much stuff. I hate the thought of ever having to shift. I hope when the time comes, I can die here, in my own home, buried in all my stuff. Years ago, I planted a kauri tree in the front garden. Now it's taller than the roof of the house. It'll still be there, of course, long after I've gone, and for that matter, even the house. Now this is interesting. In the street where I live, there are only even-numbered houses, no odd numbers. That's because there's a very steep bank on the other side of the street that can't be built on. And another thing, the top of Durham Street becomes Durham Crescent. Now, whose silly idea was that? We're forever getting mail intended for 8 Durham Crescent, and vice versa. What else is special about the street where I live? I'd have to say it's the birds. The birds, especially the tuis. Sometimes there's lots of them going at it even before the sun comes up. At times they're irritatingly repetitive. But lately we've noticed interesting variations in their songs. One bird periodically squawks like a seagull, very un-tui-like. Ay, ay, yeah, yeah, yeah. The house sometimes shows its age. Like me. But I do feel so lucky to have such a home in a valley, on the street, where I live.
Such a cool little track, that one from Master, indeed. And that's Henry Wong Do. I want to play another one for you. Now, this one's called Goodnight Kiwi, but it's not exactly what you would expect. Normally, you'd expect that kind of cheesy music with the TV aerial, etc. This one's quite different from that. I think, actually, this one is more like a Kiwi actually going to bed, or at least waking up, because, of course, they're nocturnal. Have a listen, see what you think. from Alexis French. That's a new piece of music, which is by Alexis French, who is a trumpet player, supported by David Bellamere, tenor saxophone, and Nicholas Ferrin on guitar, Nicholas Beddard on bass, and Mark Nelson, who plays the drums. Alexis is a New Zealand-born trumpet player and a composer, and has just returned from Montreal, where he completed his master's degree in jazz at McGill University. In Montreal, he played regularly with his own quintet, as well as with the Effendi Jazz Lab Orchestra, the National Jazz Orchestra of Montreal, the Joe Sullivan Big Band, a community jazz project, and the Atomic Big Band, and the Nicholas Beddard Quintet. He brought Nicholas back with him as well, which is great to see. In New Zealand, he plays regularly with a number of New Zealand jazz musicians who you may recognise, like John Ray, Lucian Johnson, Jonathan Crayford, Adam Page, Roger Fox, and the Wellington Jazz Orchestra, and leads his own quintet and quartet as well. This album, The Cut, was recorded at McGill University and Studio A in Montreal, and it features some of Montreal's finest young lions. The compositions on The Cut were also influenced by Alexis's teacher and superb alto sax player, whose name is Remy Bolduc. Please pardon my French on that one, whose refined composition techniques enabled Alexis to articulate what he was hearing. Many of the tunes were inspired by places and people in Montreal. Elmer, for example, came to Alexis during a conversation over scotch with his good friend Chris Doyle. He said, "I tried to recreate the conversational interweaving of voices by writing unisons for both horns, and the counter melodies were intertwined. They have a darkness to them, which stems from being separated from loved ones while enduring the cold, dark, seemingly endless winter. Many of the pieces on this album reflect how I feel at the time and what I was hearing musically." Let's hear a piece now. This track is the title track, The Cut. groovefm.co.nz. That is where you can find out all about this particular special, which we're playing tonight, about Rattle Records, some of the latest releases from their jazz and some of their classical stuff as well. Of course, they have their own website, which is Rattle, that's like rattlesnake, without the snake bit, rattle.co.nz. They're based out of Victoria University, and they've been going for a few years now, producing some of the finest classical music and making some very cool local jazz as well, so we champion them. If you're clicking on the groovefm.co.nz website, look out for Adventures of the Coffee Bar Kid, and there you can find a link to this radio show if you want to listen to some more. You can read all the show notes from this particular one as well. I'll put a link on that as well. And you can also find out more about up-and-coming shows and read book reports. Yes, indeed, the Coffee Bar Kid, that's me. We do book reports as well, so some of the latest releases that are out, I give my opinion on them and read them for you so that you don't have to do the hard work. You can also listen, of course, live on the groovefm.co.nz website to Groove, which is a cafe-style radio station, and we ask you to do that as well. If you'd like to donate, there's a little section underneath that just keeps the lights on for the studio. We'd love you to donate anything you can through the PayPal system. Right, back to the music now. Let's look at some more from Rattle. As we said, this particular one that I'm going to look at now is called Dog. Yes, Dog is an Auckland quintet which features 4 of New Zealand's most renowned jazz musicians. Kevin Field, Roger Mannins, who's a saxophonist, Olivia Holland, and Ron Sampson, the drummer. And Graham Reid just reviewed it like this. He said, "And just when you thought local jazz releases couldn't get any better." Indeed, the previously considered Rattle Jazz album Dark Light, which included Jonathan Crayford, Ben Street and Dan Wise, really set the bar high, but this one, he says, is a prior release on a label just a few days at a guess, set its compass for a higher direction entirely. So what he's saying is it's even better. I don't know how Jonathan Crayford feels about that. I would say it's pretty good, though. He says, as a post-bop album with pianist Kevin Field and Roger Manners heading out for a distant and sometimes demanding landscapes, it reminds you of what a thrilling musical jazz can be when you get like-minded players on board. And the destination is somewhere called Further. That's one of the tracks. Check out the difficult-to-type Diddly Diddly Dee. Yes, it is even harder to say, written by Holland out here, which finds Field, Mannins and bassist Olivia Holland and drummer Ron Sampson at their most intuitive, adrenaline-driven and thoughtful. Sampson hits it in the groove that settles in as a stabbing piano, figures and a driving bass, and there are even flickers of sax before Mannins catches fire. Those embers beneath are furiously energizing. However, and then, well, you're going to have to read the rest of it. Simon Sweetman from the Don Post and sometimes from the Herald referred to this as there's just something in the tone and the spacing, the phrasing, and then again towards the end of the opening track on Dog's eponymous debut album, Dog being the Auckland jazz supergroup featuring Roger Mannins, Ron Sampson, as we said, and Olivia Holland. This particular release is quite good because you not only get Dog 1 but you also get Dog 2 as well. It's recorded at the famous York Street Studios. That was the first one, which alas is gone. She had managed to start the whole thing at York Street and they finished it as well. So sorry Dog, you'll have to find somewhere else to go. Steve Garden mixed it at the Garden Shed. I just love these names. And the cover, which is also pretty cool, was actually created by Auckland outfit Uncle Frank. You should look for their work as well. So here's something from Dog. We're going to play a couple of tracks now. The first track, as I mentioned before, is the eponymous one called Diddle-I Diddle-I Die. And the next one, I just love the names of some of these tracks on here. It's called Peter the Magnificent. You couldn't go past a track like that. Let's rip into them, shall we?
challenge. Now, a few of you people out there, a few of you guys, have been saying that I've been lacking in my presentation skills. And I've come to address that problem today, to really look at it and give you something that is presentable. Now, presentable, should I say. Now, I've got a lovely, first of all, I've chosen a wonderful backdrop for you.
Potatoes and banana.
Isn't that nice?
And that's a third track from the wonderful Dog. That one is called Push Biker. I just love the names on these albums. They're just so quirky, which is really cool because it brings to life some of the music and some of the musical ideas. So I want to play one last album for you this time around from the Rattle Jazz collection. This one is by James Brown, Sam Cagney, and Stephen Neville. James Brown plays guitar. He also does some effects as well. Sam Cagney does guitars and effects, and Stephen Neville is a drummer and cymbalist. Let me tell you about them. They're actually called, well, they're not called that. They're actually called Yeah, Yeah, Absolutely, No Way! Exclamation mark. Put another way, Yeah, Yeah, Absolutely, No Way. They're an Adelaide-based jazz trio comprised of 2 guitarists and a drummer. The group perform contemporary jazz that is firmly and affectionately rooted in 70s fusion, and their genre-bending styles bring together elements from the jazz tradition with twinges of rock and smatterings of ambient loveliness. That's what they call it, weaving in composition and improvisation in a unique and imaginative way, creating original music that can be both subtle and explosive. Indeed it is. And so I'm going to play a couple of tracks now. Let's just tell you a little bit more about them. Each member of the band was carved a niche for themselves in the Adelaide music scene, performing in a variety of ensembles and creative projects. Their mutual music connection comes through the shared passion for creating distinctive original music that draws from their collective knowledge of jazz and their desire to push the boundaries of the genre. They've also managed to pull up a few awards along the way. They're having a musical affiliation with the Creative Original Music Adelaide, known as COMA, and it's a committee which started in 2010, which they're both currently serving as COMA artistic directors, which is pretty cool. And the group is made its debut album, which is this one. The album is called UM, and it's an album brimming with innovation, energy, and sheer love of music. And they're rightly proud of the fact that their analog recording was recorded live as it was performed in a studio without a single overdub or edit, which is pretty cool and rather rare these days. It shows the way that they can blur the lines between true artistry and, to put it nicely, aspiration. Indeed it is. Right, I promised you a track. Let's play one. And first up, an appropriate track for insomniacs, Why Sleep? hope you enjoyed this special look at the latest releases from Rattle Records. There's plenty more, and we're going to feature another one very, very soon. Huge thanks to the wonderful people at Rattle Records who've been providing me with lots of beautiful, beautiful albums. These CDs, I should mention, are wonderful products in their own selves. Have a look at their website. You can see the beautiful artwork on there. Some of it is quite stunning. To own a CD these days always seems a bit naff, but these ones they're cardboard, hardcover. They come with booklets with beautiful photography. They really are beautiful artifacts and worthy of the music which is contained inside. So I recommend you look for them. They're actually a reasonable price too, given that they're limited editions and recorded locally in Wellington. So go Wellington, except for maybe one or two, of course, like the recent one from the record, of course, which was recorded in Adelaide, and the Cut, of course, which was in Canada. But most of them are local, which we love. It's a local company too, so we really support them. Look out for their website, rattle.co.nz. And if you'd like to hear more from the adventures of the Coffee Bar Kid, then go to groovefm.co.nz. When you get there, click on the right-hand side to the Adventures of the Coffee Bar Kid, and you can find this show, links to some of my interviews, links to lots of other things as well, including book reports and music that we've been up to. And of course, every year we go to WOMAD because we love the world of music and arts and dance, which is in Taranaki. Actually, just a little note that this year is coming up for 2015, and very soon we're going to be releasing lots of information about who's playing there. So look out for that as well. So it's been my pleasure to bring you the adventures of the Coffee Bar Kid for September with this very special show all about Rattle Records. Again, rattle.co.nz. We'll see you next time. I'm going to go out with another track from the album, and this one, oh, this is a stunner, this one. This is called Down Home. Very appropriate. Catch you next time.